Honestly, let's be real. Co-parenting is emotional. Anyone that's had to do it can probably attest to how emotional it can be because frankly, you're dealing with grief, resentment, fear of losing your connection with your kid. They may honestly want to trigger you. They may want to get that emotional response from you and you can't give it. This is your power. Your power is in how you respond. Just remember, enchant the mantra if you must is I can't control the past. I certainly can't control others, but I can control how I show up for my children. And that is important. Welcome back to Doing It Scared, the Brave Rebuilt. I'm your host, Evis Mason, therapist, realtor, mom, and someone who knows firsthand how complicated co-parenting can be. In my own life, I've had to learn how to navigate co-parenting, not just with my ex-husband, but also with his new partner. And let me tell you, the journey was anything but easy, especially in the beginning. Today, we're going to be talking about the art of co-parenting with grace, and I'll share what I've learned, some real stories from my own experience, and then some practical tools to help you show up for your kids with strength and grace, even when it feels absolutely impossible. And trust me, it can feel impossible at times. So I want to get into it. So honestly, let's be real. Co-parenting is emotional. Anyone that's had to do it can probably attest to how emotional it can be because frankly, you're dealing with grief, resentment, fear of losing your connection with your kids. And sometimes honestly, the person you have to communicate with is the same person who has hurt you the most. I know for sure that in my experience, that person was someone that had hurt me the most. So there were moments, especially super early on in my separation, where I would literally bite my lips and stop myself for saying something I'd regret later, especially in front of my children, especially when they say things like, I miss my daddy. And I just want to be like, do you know what your daddy did? And as I had to literally bite my lip and I would put them to bed and then I would go downstairs in my basement and I would just scream into a pillow because I just had this anger inside of me and this sadness and this disbelief and there was no outlet for it. It felt like all day long you have to be on to try to protect your children. So at the end of the night I just go you know yell in the pillow in my basement. And I can tell you that if you watched episode number 1, I like to cuss a little bit. So I do remember, during that time, even though it was hard to look at myself in the mirror, I would get up and I would look in the mirror and then I'd say, you're Evis motherfucking Mason. And you're going to face this person. So this person for me was my ex in front of your kids. And you're going to do it with grace. And you're going to be polite no matter how hard it is. Here's the truth, okay? It can feel like weakness to hold it together in front of someone who has hurt you so badly. That can feel like that person is somehow winning. I don't know about you, but I know for me, when I used to have to, especially in the beginning, when I used to have to face my ex, and he'd come in and I'd have to be kind, and in front of the children, I'd want to be kind in front of him. It felt like he was winning somehow. And it was, hey, you hurt me, and now you're the one winning. I'm the one being kind to you. But let me tell you, that is a lie. That is a lie. That's your pain talking. You are not weakness. The real power for you and for anyone going through co-parenting, especially with someone that's hurt you, is being able to look at your kids, whether it's a week down the road, whether it's that same night, whether it's years down the road, and being able to say to them, I protected you even when I was broken, even when I was in so much pain, I protected your peace. That is the real power. That's the power you have here. You have the power to protect your children. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't, nor do I do it perfectly. I can tell you that there were times I lost my temper in front of the children, especially on my ex. There were times I yelled at my ex in front of my children. He yelled at me, and I'm not proud of those moments. And I wish I hadn't said some of those things, but I can tell you that overall, I made my children feel safe and feel like not only feel safe in their home, but feel safe to love their dad and to love their dad in front of me, which I know is difficult. And it's difficult to hear your child say, oh, I really miss my daddy. What all you want to say is, well, it's his fault that he's not here right now. But I'm telling you, making your children feel safe to love, whether it's their dad, their mom, to love the other co-parent is the best thing that you can do for them. That is strength. And that is grace, because what you're doing is you're protecting your children and you're putting them first. Now, listen, I know not all co-parenting relationships are the same. Mine was contentious in the beginning, not as contentious now, but I know that for some situations, some people have to set very different boundaries and they have to set very different things to protect their children. So part of what that would look like is setting clear expectations for how you communicate with your co-parent. But at the end of the day, the way that you speak about the co-parent in your home matters. And it matters because ultimately children view that their parents as an extension of themselves. So if you are in a position where you are now saying something disrespectful or not nice about a co-parent, it's very easy for a child to internalize that, to feel, oh, because my father or because my mom or because my guardian, because this parent is an extension of me, am I also this way? So protect your children. Now, the key message here is obviously you can't control your ex and you can't control their new partners, but what you can control is how you show up for your kids. Focus on the things that you can control. And, I do want to talk about a few things that have really helped me in as far as like my mindset and as far as some tools that have helped me in shifting how I view my relationship with my co-parent. One of the major and like the biggest shifts that changed everything for me, and honestly, I did not come up with this idea. I think I maybe saw it somewhere during that time, but that was, changing my perspective from this is my ex-spouse to this is my business partner. This is my business partner in raising these, for me, two children, right? So it's like, we're not partners in love anymore, right? We're not together raising, but we're partners in the business of raising children. Once I was able to shift that mindset, that really helped me in the way that I was communicating with my spouse. So similarly to how, if I'm communicating with a partner in business, in the office setting, and they do something that upsets me, I'm not going to go in and say, why would you say that to me? But, like get into the emotional weeds of it, right? You want to keep it business mindset. So instead of saying things like, you're late and now it's disrespectful and all these things, you just say, hey, pickup is at 5 p.m. Please confirm. The same way you would if you need to meet with somebody. This will help you become clearer, in your messaging, clearer internally. When you think about this person, it'll help you become calmer and honestly less emotional. Our emotional brains are very, very powerful and they can take over in these moments, especially if you're feeling triggered by this co-parent. Keeping things short, keeping it simple, keeping it respectful is the key, because what happens with some of these co-parents is, depending on how much conflict there is in the relationship, they may honestly want to trigger you. They may want to get that emotional response from you, and you can't give it. This is your power. Your power is in how you respond. Think about it. They send you something emotional. Hey, this is business. I'm going to respond back with, as we said, pickup is at 5:30. Please confirm that you'll be there. Period. Point blank. Short, simple, respectful. This is your business partner. Now, some practical tools to graceful co-parenting that have helped me is, the first thing is to really set clear boundaries. For us, for me and my ex-partner, it was outlined in our divorce, exactly the scheduling for our children, holidays, school events, who would have them on what days. And the thing is, it is so important to stick to a schedule, both for you, because it doesn't confuse, it keeps things, again, business. Hey, you have a meeting, in the sense that you have a meeting from 10 to 12. Same with the co-parenting relationship. You pick up the kids, and keep them between 10 and 12. That's your time. So flexibility is great. And if there's not a ton of contention in the relationship, then, it allows for more flexibility. But consistency is really what builds trust and safety for your children. And also, honestly, builds trust and safety for you with your co parent, right? Like, so for me personally, my co parent takes the kids to school and picks them up from school every Tuesday and Thursday because those are days that I go into the office. Even on days where I'm not going into the office, he still takes the kids to school and picks them up from school because what I want is I want to create that consistency. Every time he shows up on time to pick up the children and take them to school, to then, pick them up from school and bring them back to the house, that helps me build trust in him that at least he can stick to the scheduling. So set that clear boundary. And then, use neutral communication tools. That's number 2. Similarly, as I would in a business email, after I've had a meeting with someone face to face, follow up with a message, whether it's an email, whether it's a text message saying, hey, per our conversation, just clarifying that for, you know, this holiday, you will have the kids from Friday morning into Saturday morning. I will grab them Saturday morning into Sunday. It's important to have this neutral communication tool. So with my ex-spouse, we communicate through text messages, again, because it's not contentious. But it's also important to have things in writing because some people will manipulate and will change the story to fit a narrative that they're trying to create. When a message is clear and it's in writing, you can't really change that narrative. I know that for other people, that it's a bit more contentious and things like texting just through personal phones isn't the way it works. There are apps out there like OurFamilyWizard or TalkingParents that really help document the conversation and just keep things kids focused. And then the next piece here that I would say for practical tools is really respect the roles, right? Like your child's relationship with the other parent belongs to them. Let them have it. Like, let them have that relationship because it is not a reflection on your worth or their loyalty to you. I try my absolute best to let my children fully have that relationship with their father. That relationship is theirs. They need to form that relationship on their own, and then I have my own relationship with my children. And there are moments where I have to remind myself, Evis, this is not a reflection on your worth if my child is at my home and talking about missing another parent. It's not that they don't love me, and it's not that there's no loyalty to me, or it's not that I'm not worthy of that love. It's just they miss that other parent, and that's okay. Missing the other parent is okay. So try to really respect those roles. Honestly, kind of similarly, when, a new partner enters the picture for your co-parent, it can feel very uncomfortable. Just try to remember, like, respecting their role does not mean that you're being replaced. It just means you're confident in the time and the years that you've spent with your child and you know that they love you. So try to stay positive in those moments, but I know can be extremely difficult. And then lastly, self-regulation is so important in any form of co-parenting relationship because it is very easy to be triggered. And I know for myself, honestly, the first year of doing co-parenting, there were many times where I would get triggered by a message that my co-parent would send me. And there were times where did I handle it properly every time? Absolutely not. There are moments where I reacted with emotion. There were moments where I reacted angrily. There were moments where my children felt it. But what I learned is that I can react that way. And what's really helped me is I'm a big believer in deep breathing and just taking, not only deep breathing, but just like really waiting. And it's a skill that I'm still working on. Waiting to respond is key because what happens is we get triggered, our anxiety, everything gets heightened, and we want to take the message and say, well, da 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 da. At least for me, waiting is key. Take the breaths, take those deep, like from the stomach up, let it fill your whole lungs up. Take the 3 breaths. Wait at least 3 minutes. Just wait before you respond. And then you know what? You need to ask yourself 3 questions. Is my response going to be about my children or is it about some emotion that I'm having. Secondly, is my response going to be respectful? Right? Again, like we said, this is a business partner. You treat your business partners with respect, right? Even if they're not respectful back, you respect, because that's the power and the control you have. And then the third one, is it necessary? That is key. That is a key question for, is it necessary that I respond to this? If it's not related to something that has to do with my children, then it's maybe not necessary. There are many moments where my co-parent would send me messages that were not necessary. They did not relate to the children. They did not impact our relationship in any way. You know what I did? I've learned to just not respond. And that has made me feel more powerful than a lot of things. So I'm telling you, take those 3 steps. And honestly, the last piece is move your body. If you are being triggered by a message and you really want to send and your anxiety is high, move your body. Whether it's doing, I don't know, some sit-ups, because you can't leave the small space that you're in, whether it's going for a walk, whether it's literally just doing some jumping jacks like in your little space. Or for me, I'm a pacer, so I just like to pace up and down, and that moving your body helps decrease that anxiety, decrease that trigger. And every time you do this, right, it takes shorter and shorter, and you get less and less impacted by the triggers. Perfect example for me in being less impacted by the triggers. In the first 6 months, when my ex sent me something, whether it was a text message, my heart would just come from my stomach, literally I feel things in my stomach, so it would come to my stomach, so literally straight to my jaw, and I would clench, and I'd be so anxious to see the message. And every time, I'd see the message. At times I wouldn't even read it. I'd take my deep breaths. I would wait. I would do my movement, move my body, pace, and then I would read the message. And it still triggered me. But you know what? As time went on, a year later, it triggered me less. And then another year later, now I see a text message from my co-parent and it doesn't trigger me anymore. And the more you expose yourself, well, you're going to be exposed to the trigger, especially if that trigger is your co-parent. But the more you handle it before and try to regulate your own feelings and your own triggers, the better and the easier it will become to handle it. And you get to space sometimes where you're like, there's like almost nothing you can say to me in a message is gonna like lead to the ultimate trigger that it used to lead back when we first started co-parenting. I do want for some like super key takeaways here is just remember, like, enchant the mantra if you must is, I can't control the past. I certainly can't control others, but I can control how I show up for my children. And that is important. The next piece I'll say is, if you leave this episode and you're like, Evis, I need something practical. Like, obviously we have these self-regulation tools, some of the tools that I've used that have helped me that hopefully help you. But journaling is also an amazing tool. I've done a ton of journaling, a ton of, whether it's freehand, just expressing and letting out my emotions. And I would say one journal prompt that could be super helpful here is, how do I want my children to describe the way I handled co-parenting, right? When they're 20 years old, how would I want them to describe how I handled co-parenting? Think about that. Write it out how you'd want them to respond to that. And then honestly, in closing, grace in co-parenting isn't about perfection. Nothing is perfect. No one's perfect. Okay. Myself included. It's about boundaries, mindset, and self-regulation. And if you can do these 3 things, even imperfectly, you're already doing it with grace. So next week, we're going to get deeper into something so many of us face, which is healing from betrayal and learning how to rebuild trust in yourself after your world's been shaken. So until then, take a deep breath, give yourself some credit, and remember, you're doing it scared, but you're doing it beautifully. Since today we're talking about control, I do, last episode, I love this book by Sophia J. Ross. It's I Can't Remember to Forget You. It's awesome if you're going through any sort of loss, pain. It's great poems if you like into poetry. So I'd like to read you one of her poems. It's, do you know it wasn't your fault? Do you know you couldn't have done anything to change that situation? And that you should have never fought so hard just to be loved? Do you know you deserve to have your needs and feelings respected? You deserve to be loved, supported, and comforted during your most difficult moments instead of being abandoned. Never forget it. I love this. You deserve to be loved, whether that's starting with loving yourself or whether that's being loved by others. You deserve to be loved. I hope that message resonates with you the way it does with me.